Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we're looking at Invasive Species, a very short introduction by Julie Lockwood and Dustin Welbourne. This is book number 737 in the Oxford University Press, a very short introduction series, making this title pretty new, having come out just last year. If you don't know about this series, these books are a great resource for getting a quick overview of a topic you're interested in learning about. They typically consist of some history, some theory, maybe philosophy, and any other aspects that may be important in discovering what some of the major points are in a given subject. There are over 750 books in the very short introduction series. I've been wanting to do a video on this series as well as the Oxford Landmark Science series. I think the very short introduction books are pretty valuable as reading material, but the Oxford Landmark Science series is even better. So, Invasive Species by Lockwood and Melbourne. If you're an ecology or nature lover, this is a book that's going to be well worth your time. It's just over 100 pages. Most of the books in this series are between 1 and 200 pages. And it really is amazing how much you can learn in such a short book. And another nice thing about these books is that they can help give you an idea of whether this is a topic that you'd like to study further while only costing you a very small time investment. Invasive Species is a book that takes you through the different concepts in the study of invasive species, very much in the style of like a school textbook. The book is formatted as a systematic delivery of information rather than an appeal through literary charm, but that's not to say that there's anything dull about the book. At least I didn't think so. We learned some of the points about what makes something an invasive species and the different ways that species end up in other areas historically and comparing that with how it works today. This is a theme that the authors use multiple times because while the main focus of the book is to teach the reader, it also conveys the importance of the whole situation because the implications here are hard to understate. So there is this sense that I'd compare to when you're learning about like pollution or climate change or something like that. And climate change is actually one of the important factors the authors discuss in the spread of organisms to other areas. I don't want it to sound like this book is a big downer because it's not like that at all. And the way they write about the progress that we have made and are still making is encouraging because they do say that with increasing global commerce, higher rates of invasive species are inevitable. So it is very important to work toward curbing this issue, especially through prevention rather than correction. The authors state that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Another factor that may make this book appeal to everyone is that this is something that does affect everybody, probably on a host of different levels. Ever since we've been able to sail to other continents, the movement of populations from one to another is something that we've been taking part in, whether intentionally or not, and it's only becoming easier to do this. And there are so many ways that ecosystems can be affected by the introduction of something that never evolved as part of the balance of a locality. And in some cases, it can even mean the complete collapse of the local food webs. One example discusses a kind of domino effect, which at first probably appears mostly harmless. A type of invasive giant hogweed ends up being established on a stream bank. It's able to outcompete the native plants until the hogweed is the only thing growing on the bank. And it turns out that this giant hogweed lacks the robust root system that the native plants had, which were playing a big part in staving off erosion from the bank. The hogweed resulted in excess sediments into the stream, which prevented the aquatic plants in it from being able to grow properly. And these aquatic plants were important food and housing for other organisms in the stream. So, with the aquatic plants dying off, the swiftness of the stream current picked up and accelerated the erosion further. So, we had this system where so many living things existed in a kind of natural balance, but the introduction of one species led to the collapse of everything. And there are several examples like this in the book. The whole time I was reading this, I kept thinking about how this idea of invasive species is going against natural evolution, and that's what makes it so insidious. Let's go back to climate change for just a minute. I think a really good way to put the invasive species issue into perspective is to look at it from an evolutionary aspect and comparing that to how life and climate have coexisted historically. The climate has always fluctuated radically throughout Earth's history, but the thing that makes our current situation dire is the rate of change. If climate change proceeds slowly as is natural, life will be able to select for adaptive advantages and hopefully have descendants that live through the changes. But the rate that we're seeing today doesn't really allow many organisms to do that. That's what's so different about it, changing it from a slow natural process to more akin to like a cataclysm. And we know that as far as surviving cataclysms or becoming extinct, it's a matter of chance or luck. That was a major point of Stephen Jay Gould's awesome book, Wonderful Life, which if you're still watching this video, you might want to read that, or at least watch my review of it. Anyway, what I mean by luck is that, for example, when the meteor came in the end Cretaceous period that wiped out the dinosaurs, the conditions it created allowed the small mammals to get by and eventually thrive, but the traits that got us through that were never selected to survive cataclysms. They were selected for unrelated reasons. So why am I even talking about this? Because it's very similar with invasive species. Everything at our stream bank from earlier was living in a balance that worked because the things that lived there all evolved ways to survive in the presence of each other. Then along comes this giant hogweed that evolved somewhere else under different selection pressures and different challenges in the presence of different organisms. The native plants at the stream bank were completely outcompeted, out-reproduced, and overwhelmed because they were cheated out of the time required to evolve survival strategies in the presence of the giant hogweed. And things like this are taking place all over the planet, even on Antarctica, say the authors. Well, at least they say that there are invasive species in Antarctica. And one more thing that makes this tricky is that it can be so hard to predict how one organism will affect an ecosystem, but odds are survival will be becoming more difficult for something. But this is what we do. Our entire agricultural needs depend on what could be thought of as invasive species. Okay, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed this book. I'm always looking out for good books on ecology and good books in the very short introduction series, which I will do a video on soon, but check them out for sure. And be sure to check out Invasive Species by Julie Lockwood and Dustin Welbourne.